Welcome back to another episode of the Hard Money Talk Show. And today I'm going to be talking to a friend of mine, Shannah. We're going to be talking about how she went from going through a very hard divorce where she lost everything in the divorce, everything, and had to start over from scratch. Once that happened to her, she really had to figure out how to get right with her mind and her money. So today we're going to be breaking apart money mindset and exactly what it takes to switch and change that money mindset from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. So think about it this way. A lot of people feel stuck in marriages because of financial pressures, whether it be that you're a man in a marriage who will walk away with less time with your children and have to pay a ton of money in child support, or maybe you're a stay-at-home mom who is afraid of going back to work and getting a job after you've been out of the workforce for 10, 15 years because you've been raising your children. Going through a divorce can bring about a lot of difficult money decisions. And so we're going to break that down along with the money mindset piece and how to go and change the mindset so that you can really hone in and fix what's really going on up in here, because that, as Shannah says, is the first step in creating wealth and moving on with your financial goals. So let's go and hop on into the interview. All right, Shannah, thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm so glad to have you on and to have found you. I think I found you on Instagram, right? Is that where I found you? I messaged you somewhere.
I think so. We run in kind of the same circles. So it's really quite odd that we haven't spoken until now.
I know. And we speak, I think, a lot about the same things. Like this show is talking a lot about, we have a lot of the same stuff, financial trauma, and you're a CFP and you have life experience and you talk about mindset. So that's what we're going to talk about today, money mindset. But I want you to share your story first, because I think that is so powerful. Right before I hit record, we were kind of talking about your background and your, I don't want to say your hard money talk financial story, but why don't you go back and share your story of what we were talking about before we started hit record on the show?
Yeah. So I call myself a recovering certified financial planner.
My book is called The Recovering Spender. So I get it, right?
There we go. Yes. So I have been a CFP and in the financial industry for over 15 years. And I worked primarily with female entrepreneurs. That's really what I am. That's what I started out as. And that's what I love. And, I've worked with everyone from, just out of college, kind of rubbing together like two nickels to make it work, all the way up to people who have $100 million in assets. So I've really seen everything about people's monies and where we're really similar and where we're different. And, but my personal story is, obviously being a money expert, you feel like you should be super perfect. Like you should exceed the bar of perfection, which I think is already this total misbelief. And I don't know, it's just something I really want to shatter when we talk about money. There isn't a perfect when it comes to money. We all have our stories. We don't talk about money. It's this taboo subject. And so we feel really isolated and we feel like our mistakes are original and unique to us. And that is just so not the case. I mean, you know it as well. We could talk to 100 different people and I guarantee you they have a version of the same money mistake over and over and over again. But because it's this kind of cloud of confusion, we don't talk about, even being a money expert, you can feel like you're alone when you go through certain things, certain financial things. I was in a marriage for almost 10 years. And it was a toxic relationship, not a good relationship. And for a long time, my husband out-earned what I did. I was a new business owner, really starting out in a business. And if anyone listening is an entrepreneur, you know that there are some years that are very good and some years that are just a little bit not so great, I would say. Yes, less than great. And so, there was this reliant sort of energy on my husband and his very good income. He worked at a very high level job. And I knew for a while that we needed to get divorced. But of course, the thing I couldn't figure out was the money piece. And, we got to a point where he actually was fired from his very high level job. And so I became the sole, breadwinner for a few years. But I knew that regardless, money would be the sticking point. It would be the thing that he would use as kind of the weapon, I guess you would say, against me. And so when we got divorced, I was living in California, and it's one of those states where the law just kind of looks down the line and says, okay, who's making the money? How do we split it up? And that was just something where, I'm a feminist woman, but something where I felt like, I don't like the idea of having to pay this person for 10 years. I just mentally couldn't quite wrap my head around it. And so there were a lot of money lessons I learned. There were a lot of blocks and money stories that I had to really kind of process during that time. But the end result was what worked out financially best for me was to let go of almost every asset that I had at that particular point in time in order to not have to pay this person. And, financial abuse is one of these weird, wicked kind of topics. It's certainly something that we don't talk about very often. And women sometimes will say, oh, no, I mean, he or she might have done XYZ to me, but that's not quite abuse, right? But there are lots of ways that you can find yourself trapped in a situation where you're feeling stuck because of money. You're feeling like you can't make a decision you need to make because of money. And obviously for me, on the other side, I've been able to rebound, and the lessons that I've learned from that, I've been able to infuse in everything I do and everything that I talk about. And I think it really brought a human element, at least to me, because even if you're a money expert, you're an expert at everything. It doesn't mean that you are immune from things happening to you.
It's so true. It's so true. And I can really relate to that. I've done 2 episodes so far on financial abuse, actually. One with somebody who is married. Actually, both of them escaped a domestic violence relationship. One of them was a financial professional and the other one was not. But I myself got involved with a man that I thought was, a dream man, and he ended up being abusive, and I had to escape that relationship, and we weren't together very long, but there was, a sense of financial abuse going on there. And I just know that this show has helped me so much to be able to be open about that, because there is that shame that I personally have felt over the past couple of years of being like, I'm a financial professional. I teach this, but yet I have found myself in an abusive relationship with a man who is using my finances. How do I get out of this now, knowing that I'm going to lose a lot of my hard-earned assets? I just want to beat myself in the head sometimes, you know what I mean? But you have to make those hard decisions. And what's interesting too, is I see it on the flip side too, being a single mom and having a lot of friends who are single, and even having been out in the dating game for a little while, not being in a relationship, but just tiptoeing and dating, that there are a lot of men out there that also have experienced, if I leave my wife, I'm really unhappy. If I leave my wife, she's going to take me for full child support. And I met a guy that was paying his ex-wife $700 a week. And he was driving a junky car. He could barely afford an apartment for himself. And, it sounds like, when you decide to end a relationship, there's financial decisions, and you have to weigh that out. Is it worth it? Right. And a lot of times if you're at that point, it's like, yes, I want to be like, yes, it's worth it. It's good on the other side, but you might have to give some things up, but there's joy on the other side of that. But did you have to sounds like you kind of had to go through that process of you knew that it was going to get a little rocky there financially for you.
Yeah, I knew, I knew it was going to get rocky. The unfortunate thing when my ex-husband lost his job, he also went and became a CFP as well. So he knew the tricks that I knew. And so that makes it a really sticky situation. But, I think you brought up a really good point where at the end of the day, when you're going through any financial breakup, there's not a winner and there's not a loser. There are things that you are definitely going to have to give up. I think it's really thinking about your life and stepping away from the money almost, which is something that we don't do very often. And what I learned is that you can always make more money. I know that may feel really hard and may feel really difficult when you're in that particular situation, because I've been there, and the idea of basically giving away money that you've worked really hard for is a really tough decision. And it's a time also to think about really what matters to you. I have friends who have gone through divorces or separations where it's drug out for years and years. It becomes very costly and very expensive because either party is not willing to budge on something.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think really figuring out what are the things that you really value, what are the things that really mean the most to you, and then what are the things that you're okay with letting go of, knowing that you can always make more money. You can
Mm-hmm.
always buy more things. When I left that situation, I had a car that I had a very large car payment on, and I had a suitcase and whatever I could stuff in the suitcase. And that was it. That was all that I had to my name. And so that's a very humbling process to be able to do that. But it also, what you talked about, there's also a freeing aspect of it too, of feeling like, okay, I'm making a decision for me that feels really good for me. And I know that I have to go through this painful piece. Once I go through this painful piece, I will get to the other side. You don't quite know what it looks like at that time, but you will make it. I promise you that.
And it's like you want to be able to give them that gift, right? Give them the gift of that, you've been through it and you've gone through the other side, and you want to give them that gift. But part of the gift is going through the hard stuff. That's, I think, part of the gift is finding that out, because me and my first husband, I mean, we have 4 kids together. We divorced amicably. We did it out of court. We were divorced in 2 months. We both, work together, and we're still good friends. And that's just, we co-parent our kids together, and it's been amazing. But the second, when I got into that other relationship, the man turned out to be like a narcissist, like scary. Like I didn't even know like these type of people kind of existed. And there was a lot of shame in that, especially like I was so embarrassed, and I've talked about that in the other episodes, so people can go back and listen to the other episodes that we did on financial abuse. But, I'm having to walk away from that relationship in debt, from that, but I can make more money. I'm an entrepreneur. Like I can do it. And that's okay. And I'm in an okay place with that, but it's all that money mindset, right? So let's pivot to that, because I think that's so important, is the mindset. And I'm a big mindset person. Like I believe in meditation. I believe in, manifestation and mindset, and whatever you put your mind to, that kind of stuff. Like, and I do a lot of that kind of work on myself personally. And mindset is hard when you have junk that you haven't talked about. And we've had a lot of financial therapists on this show to talk about like, family trauma, like when you were a kid and all of that kind of stuff. So talk to us about why you focus so much on mindset when it comes to finances now.
Going through this situation myself was really the portal to understanding that mindset is, I believe, the secret step, the missing ingredient, whichever way you want to put it, in money success. And then further working for 15 years with all sorts of people, all different demographics, all different ages, all different careers across the income spectrum. What I saw was when they were hiring me as a financial planner, what they were looking for me to do is help them with the mindset piece. They just didn't know it. And so it was shocking to me when I started to really have the realization that regardless if this was someone just starting out or someone who made $1 million a year, the sticking point between them being able to achieve their goal was really understanding how they think, act, and feel about money, and then how that relates to their actions, habits, and choices. And once we would move through that piece in a real almost financial therapy session without them knowing that's really what I was doing, that's when you would see the aha light bulbs turn on. That's when people would start to make the connection. So I tell people that the mindset piece is more important than the how-tos. We can read a book about the how-tos. We can ask a million different people about the how-tos. The how-tos are not the difficult piece. The difficult piece is wrapping your brain around why you make certain choices, why you don't make certain choices, and how to really cultivate, you talked about meditation, how to really cultivate this air of mindfulness around your money, right? And it's looking at it every day. It's thinking about, okay, why am I making certain decisions? Why do I feel like impulse buying right now? Is there something going on behind the scenes? Why am I scared to spend my money? What is that about? Where does that story come from? What are the blocks that I have? What is society telling me? There's all of these sayings like money doesn't grow on a tree and all of these sayings that we just unconsciously kind of repeat over and over. Well, they make an impact in our brain and our psyche. And we start to believe that, oh, money doesn't grow on trees. Oh, I can't just go out and make more money. Okay, well then I have to be super careful with the money I have. I can't spend any of that. We could go so many layers deep with this, but I really believe this is the missing piece. If you've been trying to achieve a financial goal and you have been stuck for a very long time, and all of us can raise our hands and agree that this has happened some point in our life, if we start focusing on that mindset piece, and I think the first question is just thinking about it very simply. How do I feel about money? How does money show up in my life, right? What are my thoughts around money? If we start to untangle that piece, then we start to really have this understanding of, oh, okay, maybe this is the reason why I can't finally get that debt paid off, or I get close to getting that down payment for my house and then, something happens.
Right.
Or maybe it's just, I feel like I'm in this negative anxiety swirl about money all the time, which a lot of us are in. That's a very common emotion. So I think the mindset piece, it's what I saw over and over and over again, and what became sort of my, powerful kind of message or system for people is there is a way. And when we start with this piece and then we add in the how-tos, that's when the magic really happens.
It's so true. And it's so powerful. And I think, that was the number one reason why I started this podcast, was because I've been teaching financial education for a decade, and I have gotten so sick and tired of teaching financial education because people aren't doing the thing. They buy the programs, they want to do the stuff, they buy the courses, they join the community, and then they don't do anything. I'm like, we got to stop doing this. Like, I can't do it any longer. Like, I can't teach you. And it's been interesting when I'm booking guests on the podcast. I'm not able to reach out to the normal, like, personal finance influencers because they're all teaching the how-tos, right? And I'm like, I'm done. I'm done with the how-tos. Like, those are great. There's nothing wrong with how-tos. I'm just not that's not going to work for everybody. The people that I want to reach are the people that like what we're talking about, the money mindset, because it affects everybody. Like, everybody is affected whether they like it or not. And, I just did an interview earlier today, actually, with somebody else. And we were talking about how he went from like broke to a millionaire, he went from poverty to a millionaire, but yet this mindset from this poverty mentality has followed him up to a multimillionaire. And how do you break that? those are the challenges that happen. So when you're sitting down with a client who, let's say, like just keeps on getting in and out of debt and they like cannot get their stuff together, like where do you first start? How do you help them? Like if somebody's listening today and they're like, oh my gosh, like I'm stuck, I'm in this trap of getting in and out of debt and I can't figure out what the heck I'm doing wrong. Like where would you even start?
It's kind of a two-piece for me, and it's really, this is the tough part because it's so customized. It's really understanding the person and really getting a feel for who they are, how they show up in the world. All of those sorts of things really make a difference into kind of how you're teaching this. But I would say it's a two-parter. So one, we have to have an awareness of where our cash is going. And I'm not talking about budgeting. I'm talking about understanding down to the penny where my money is going. So when I have that awareness piece, then I can start to make intellectual changes with my money and decisions, right? I now have options. So mindset is also about awareness. It's bringing awareness to what I'm thinking. So once we understand where our money's flowing, right? Then it's going back and thinking about, like your example about the poverty upbringing, right? So how did my parents talk about money? How did they not talk about money? Was money a scary topic at home? Was it not? Really thinking about the money story, as you mentioned, right? Really starting to really dive in. There's a whole lot of journal prompts that you can do about this, but it's really going back and retelling your story from a money perspective. And from that, you look for patterns that have happened over your life, right? And so if somebody's been in and out of debt, what we're looking at is, why are these patterns occurring? So are the patterns occurring because we are stuck maybe in this scarcity, poverty mindset that a lot of us are in? I would say like 90% of us operate in scarcity mindset. That is how our world is set up for us to behave in. So are we buying things because we're stressed out? Are we buying it in moments where we feel fearful? Maybe we're in a negative relationship, and so we're using purchasing things as a way to help us feel better. So it's really tough to give like a 1, 2, 3 step diagnosis, but it really starts with understanding first this visual awareness of where my money is going. And then once I understand where my money is going, let me go back and think about my story around money. Are there these patterns that I can start to see? Like, okay, I start paying off debt, I start feeling really good, and then I get back into debt. Okay, what's happening in that moment? Can I unravel that moment? Okay, and can I look, is there a parallel or pattern that's happening? And when we can find those patterns, then it's like, okay, now we have to do the psychology part, the behavioral part around money, and say, what sort of boundaries, new habits, action steps, what can we set up around those pattern moments so that we don't have to reverse the behavior all at once, but how can we start making small little shifts that are pointing us in the right direction? So doing that work along with a real conscious awareness of where my money is going puts me in control, puts me in the driver's seat. It doesn't change the numbers overnight, right? But when I can bring this awareness of thought and I can find those patterns, then I can start making those little shifts and those little changes that are ultimately going to make a big impact going forward.
I think honestly, one of the hardest things for people is, I always tell people like to take the pause, like take a deep breath, wait 24 hours before that purchase, write it down, make a list, don't react. And that pause often is the most difficult part, that mindful piece of, if I spend $50 on this today, then that means that I can't put that $50 in savings, or I can't invest that $50, or I can't buy clothes for my kids. You have to be able to have that mindfulness piece to know where your money is going, but still be able to enjoy your life, right? Like still be able to say, these are the things that are important to me, and these are the things I want to spend my money on. But at the same time, like like we need to get a grip on our eating out budget because I'm spending $1,000 a month eating out, and then I complain I don't have any savings. Well, okay, you can make a change, but how willing are you? The willingness to make that change, I find that's a difficult piece as well.
Totally agree. I think two other things I would add, if you've never done these before, and I do these when I was practicing with people who made, people who made millions of dollars, I would make them sit down and do these steps, is going back to almost a childlike quality. So grab a piece of paper and some crayons or, magazines. We're going to create our old school kind of vision board, right? And we're going to write down, what do we want our life to look like? Like, what do we want this thing to be about? Where are we living? What does our career look like? What are we doing for fun? We can draw it, we can post pictures, we can do anything, right? But we have this visualization then of, what are we actually going towards? Like, what does this actually mean for us? We're all different, we're all individuals, we all want a different version of life. So if we're all trying to just plug in the same money how-tos, it doesn't work. It's not, they call it personal finance for a reason, right? It's personal. So do that, have fun with that, right? And then I also suggest people write what I call like a money manifesto. So you know how a business will have a business mission statement? Write one for yourself, right? What do you want money to stand for in your life? What do you want money to be about? What sort of power are you giving money in your life, right? Write out your statement about money and how you want it to show up in your life. And all of these things help you root towards your goal. So if your goal is paying off debt, and we've done the vision, we know what we want our life to look like, we understand the role that money is going to play in our life. All of these things help to rewire our brain and help us in those moments where we're in spending moments, or we're noticing we're in a pattern, to do what you say, to take that pause, to go, look, I remember this is what I'm playing for. This is the way I want money to show up in my life. All of those things are your aids to help you in this process, right? Then you just plug in the strategy of how you're paying off debt once you get to that point, right? But you have this strong rooting force in you of what this means to you, of why you're doing it, right? And the role money plays in your life. And when you have that kind of that anchor inside of you, it makes those pauses and those decision moments a lot easier.
I love what you said, that that anchor. We're like, no, this is it. This is what I'm doing. This is what my life goal is. This is where I'm doing. And I love, anytime I've done any, the courses that I have on my website in the community, I always have people fill out a why statement. What is your why moving forward? Why do you want to do this? And have that, your why needs to be greater at all times than your why nots, because we need to know what we're moving towards, have a goal. But I love that money manifesto, because I could see that hanging on my bathroom mirror, and just really seeing that, because it can change so much over time too, that once you hit one goal, then you move it on to the next, and that's so powerful. And I think that people get stuck. One thing I want to go back to, because we use this phrase all the time, this scarcity mindset, right? And then we want to move on to an abundance mindset, and we use it. It's kind of like a catchphrase, but when you're explaining that, what do you see that as meaning, right? When you're talking about scarcity mindset?
I see that show up for people in lots of different ways. It could be the financial abuse piece that we're talking about, where we're thinking we can't leave a relationship, or we can't do something because money is somehow a very finite, limited resource. We see it as something very small, that we can't make more of this. We have to really cling to it. I see it a lot with women in investing, where there's this fear of what happens if I invest and I lose all my money. So I have this scarcity where I'm just thinking, I'm not smart enough. I can't be good at this. I think social media, TV, it's all rooted in scarcity. You don't have enough. You're not going to have enough. You're not good enough. and we're just sort of inundated by it. And so I think, really thinking about how does scarcity show up in your life, in your world, in your money? What are you maybe clinging to um, a little bit harder than maybe you need to? Or on the opposite side, where are you maybe sort of free flowing, where you need to have a little bit more sort of conservative approach to your money? But I see it show up a lot of times for women. They're still, even the most badass out there, amazing woman, still has a scarcity mindset, a lot about money, because through almost like osmosis, most of us have grown up thinking that, well, it's the man who has the money. It's the men who make the money. It's the men who are smart about the money. And of course, I'm generalizing here. So, but I think it's something that's almost like innately born into us. And so we kind of operate out in the world in a very scarcity minded fashion without even really thinking about it, and thinking how it's maybe stopping us from building wealth, from taking certain steps.
If you started 2022 with more debt than you'd like to have, you're not alone. Debt.com is here to help. Whether you still have holiday credit card debt to pay off or student loan payments are starting to build up again. Maybe you even have debt collectors that are hounding you for payments you just can't make. The experts at Debt.com can help. Finally, one website can help you solve your debt problems. Credit cards, back taxes, student loans, medical debt, collections, you name it, Debt.com can help you solve it. And they do it with no judgments, because they understand that when people end up in debt, it's usually for things outside their control, like job loss or divorce or some other hardship. So if you're in debt, visit laurengrutman.com/debt to get the relief you need, or call 888-431-2044 to get a free consultation with a debt relief specialist. Find solutions to get out of debt, fix your credit, and get on the path to achieving your financial goals. When life happens, visit Debt.com. Yep, I totally agree with that. And I see that a lot when I've done, because I do one-on-one money counseling. And a lot of times when I'm talking with the women, a lot of it is they're just like, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that, and then beating themselves up bloody for doing the same thing. And I got out of debt and then I just got back in, and how could I be so stupid? And, it's like, we're human beings. Like, I love this phrase. I heard it once and I don't remember who said it, but it said, "Thank God I never have to rise above human." And it's like, yes, like, we're humans. We're supposed to make mistakes. We're not perfect. And so if we can give ourselves some grace when we're making these, changes and learning new skills, like, goodness.
And there's this, I mean, you know this as well, this FIRE movement, this movement of everybody has to be debt free, which I just feel is so unrealistic, and it's really leaning into that perfectionist mentality when it comes to money. If that's your choice, if that's the life that you set up and that's what you envision, that's fantastic. But the reality is that most of us get in and out of debt. Most of us have a high credit score and then something might happen and maybe it dips some. Most of us have, businesses that do well and maybe doesn't do so well. I mean, most of us have all of these things that happen kind of over and over again. So I think it's a real myth to teach and share that you reach these pinnacles, you pay off all your debt, or you buy the house for cash, or whatever that means, and then you're never going to have debt, or you're never going to make a money mistake. And that just feels, it's so restricting to me and so not the truth. And I don't know how these stories just keep permeating, but it just keeps going through. And so you have people like your client who just feel terrorized that they've let this happen, when the reality is it's normal and it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, having these type of money conversations are so important because of that. Like, to say, and I actually had the opportunity, because I was doing a counseling session with her, like, hey, you know what? It's okay. Like, I'm in debt right now because I got into a really stupid relationship and he cleared me out of a lot of money. and like I'm paying it off because I have the skill. I know what to do. It doesn't stress me out. It's like once you learn the skill of paying off debt, you know what to do, right? I know all of that. To say that like it's okay that we're not always going to be like this. It's life is like this. And it's like, if we can just hold on and go for the ride and be honest about it and be honest with these conversations. And that's what, like, I love the FIRE movement. I love everything that it stands for, but I also am like, you know what? Like, I also am super cool with working now because I love what I do and continuing to work, for the rest of my life because I love what I do, and I feel partially retired anyway because I'm an entrepreneur and like, I work when I want to and I don't work when I don't want to. So like that's cool too. But the ability to say things didn't work out again, but I'm going to be okay, And what is that? I'm trying to think of what the term is, where it's like you let everything that's supposed to be come in and you let everything that's supposed to be go out. I don't remember what the term of that in. But it's just like whatever is going to be will be, and whatever is not supposed to be will be. And if you happen to find yourself in debt again, let's work on the mindset piece. That's where I would hope everybody would start listening to this, because that's really where you're going to see the change. The lasting change that's going to keep you from getting in debt, hopefully another time, because you're going to be able to like sit and like think about the purchase, or think about like fill out a money manifesto statement and put it on your refrigerator and think about where you actually, want to be with your money. Cause money is just a vessel. And I was talking with, I had a wonderful, financial therapist on a couple episodes ago, and he was talking about money just as a source of energy. And,
Yes.
It's just flowing between us. And it was a beautiful episode of it's just a vessel to be able to flow between people, and
yeah,
it's
I mean,
true.
It's something that's man-made,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's this crazy thing that we made up and somehow is, the two things that cause the most stress in people's life: relationship, sex, and money, right? But it's energy, and it's this tool. Like I tell people, just like you would pick up a hammer to, hammer a nail, it's the same sort of way. So that's very much a mindset piece. When we can make that shift and we can kind of see it as it is,
Mm-hmm.
we can take some of the power away from it too. I'm not saying that money isn't important. I'm not saying that money doesn't help financial situations. I'm not, money, very realistically divides us. It divides cultures, it divides demographics, it divides all sorts of things. And so the tool in the wrong hands will create the wrong outcome. But really understanding that we do have some control over the way money is showing up in our life, the amount of stress and fear and shame and doubt that we're letting just permeate day after day after day. Those are things that we can really work on. It doesn't automatically change the numbers, but you would be really surprised at how it does change the numbers, because it opens you up to new thought patterns, new opportunities, new relationships in a way that you couldn't see before. And I've seen it again with so many different people and all different income levels, to know that there is definitely some truth to it.
Yep, I agree. And so let's go back then. So here you are walking out of a marriage with a suitcase and a car. And where was your money mindset then? And how did you get it to where it is now? Like, so if somebody's listening or watching today that might be kind of in that place, because I've actually just this past week, I've had probably a half a dozen conversations with just friends that are in marriages that they're very unhappy in, but they are terrified to leave because of the financial piece. And it's like a real problem. Both men, a couple of them were men and a couple of them were women. Women, because they're stay-at-home moms. One of them has mental health issues, so she feels like the husband's going to take the kids. Right. But then the men, all three of the men that I talked to, were terrified because they know their wives are going to go after the jugular for child support. And all of their wives work, but all of them make more money than their wives. So they're terrified of not only losing their kids, because let's just face it, that's a lot of times what happens with divorce is the men lose a lot of time with their children and they lose a lot of money. So I'm on, me and my ex split our kids 50-50 and we don't do any child support. I buy the stuff at my house and he buys the stuff at his house and we just call it a day, because that's just the way we wanted to do it. Because we both make an income, and we wanted to maintain our relationship for ourselves and for our kids. But that's just not the case. That's not the norm. I know that from being single and just having a lot of friends that have gone through divorces. But when you walked out of there, I mean, I know you said you kind of felt like, okay, like I can have a fresh start, but I'm sure that there was a mindset that you had to work on. So walk us through that process, and how can somebody who's kind of on the fence of that, get to the other side?
Yeah, my mindset prior was not good. I'm not even sure I really understood money mindset. I was living a life where it was very much based on status. I thought I had to have the house and the car and this and that. I mean, it was very status based, very empty. I felt very empty, very numb. But it was using money as a way to mask some of those feelings, but they were very, very present. So when I left, I knew that I wasn't going to have any of that stuff that made me feel mildly cozy before was vaporized in an instant. And I did the process that I'm talking about here. So I literally got a giant piece of butcher block white paper, and I got crayons and markers and all sorts of stuff. And I said, okay, I have this chance right now to decide how I want money to show up in my life and what the heck I want my life to look like. I was in debt as well. I had to take on debt. So, I mean, it's pretty much you're at the bottom of the barrel. So I knew that I had to change my relationship with money going forward. I couldn't exist the way I existed before. I couldn't exist with the fear, with the anxiety, with the shame, with the doubt. So I started mapping out, this is how I want money to show up. This is how I feel about money. Here are the things that are important to me. Here are the things that are not important to me. I don't even need to think about those anymore. And how do I want to rebuild from here? Right. And I kind of laid it out. It was like my roadmap, if you will. And I pasted that giant thing on the wall. I lived with my parents for 3 months. I pasted it on the only open wall. And every morning I would look at that and I would say, okay, that's right. Here's how I want money to show up in my life. Here's what I want it to look like. Here's what I want to focus on. Here's what I'm reshaping my beliefs around, right? I'm going from feeling like I need money to provide status that is very fictitious, right? It just was a show thing. But here's how I really want it to be in my life, right? Here are the things I'm okay with letting go of. It was really like creating your own map, if you will. And I think that's a really important first step, because that is like your GPS system for going forward. That is the thing that you can look at and say, right, okay, this is why I did this.
Yep.
This is how I know it's going to be okay. And here's kind of my schematic for how I'm going forward, right? And whenever I would have a bad day and I would feel, what was me? I've given up all of these things. I'm in debt. What am I going to do? Like all of those feelings, I would come back and I would look at this thing, like paste it on the wall. And I would say, okay, right. Okay, just breathe. What's one small step I can take today that is getting me closer to this? And so I would start doing it little baby step by little baby step every single day. And I would get through a week and I'd be like, oh, I did like 7 little baby steps. I feel a little bit better. Oh, and then I would get through a month, and then I would get through a couple of months. And before I knew it, I started to think feeling different. Like the attachments I had to money, they're starting to shift, even though I don't have any at that time. I'm starting to think different. I'm starting to be intentional about my purchases. It was really like I could sort of see my brain rewiring in a way that I had just never thought about before. And so, for me, I feel really grateful for having that experience because that was what came out of it. And then when I would work with clients, I would say, all right, let me see if I could take them through the same sort of process. And I would watch it work with them, and I would watch them take little steps and watch that brain kind of rewire. And I thought, okay, there's something to this, right? So it starts very simply, and you're not gonna build the bridge in a day, right? So it's what's one little tiny step I can do today. Is it just maybe I need to think a little differently? Maybe I need to be aware of my thoughts. Maybe I need to make one little money step. Maybe I just need to for a walk today. Like,
Right.
what's one small little thing? What can I do today? And then what can I do for tomorrow? And the other thing I did was I started a gratitude journaling process.
Oh,
So
I love gratitude journaling.
every night I would write down three things, like
Mhm.
three things I'm really grateful for. Things that went great in the day. If someday it was like, this is a crappy day, it would be like, I'm thankful for the sunshine. Like, it would
Mhm.
just something. And I really believe when you're in a tough situation, that really does help you to see, okay, there's some good here. Okay, there's some good here. Okay, it's getting a little bit better. So, from all the people you've talked about that have been on your show, the brain is so powerful. It's more powerful than we really even understand. So
Mhm.
we have to really tap into those unconscious places in our brain, and we have to do all of these little things to really work that rewiring. But if you do it, you don't have to do it every single day, but if when you remember, you have a conscious thought, you have an intentionality behind your money, or you can take that pause, like all of these little things, they're going to really start to add up.
Yeah, and there's one book I've been listening to lately, Atomic Habits. Have you heard of that book? And so they were talking about I listen to it when I'm on the treadmill because I have a hard time sitting still to read. So I multitask. So I'm listening to it on the treadmill the other day, and he was talking about habit stacking. So, if you are somebody who drinks coffee in the morning or maybe tea at night, maybe that's a new habit you can start doing, is drinking a cup of tea before bed. And while you're drinking your tea, you stack it with another habit, which is a gratitude list at the end of the day. And I truly believe that, a grateful heart can do beautiful things. And you can always find something to be grateful for, whether it's like, I have running water today, or I have lights, or I have a warm bed, something like that. And if you can find something to be grateful for, it puts you in a better mindset. And I don't know, when I go to bed grateful, I wake up happier. That's just me,
100%.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so
I mean,
I love that. I love I'm a big visual person. So if I can visualize, like, that's something I want to do. Like, after this call, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go and get my kids' art stuff, and I'm going to put
yes,
something up right in front of my wall here, like visualizing what I want my money to look like, feel like, and all of that. Because visually, if you can see it every day, like, it's beautiful. And there is this one sign that I have up on my wall, and it says, they said she couldn't, so she did. And I love that because I had such a bad money mindset after my divorce that I felt like I felt like, what the hell just happened? Like, I went through the first divorce, and then I got into this crazy second relationship, and then that didn't last like very long at all, not even like a year. And I felt like, honestly, like a piece of shit. I really did. My mindset was in a really bad place. So I redid a whole office for myself, and I got all these quotes around my office. Attract what you expect, reflect what you desire, become what you respect, mirror what you admire. I have all these signs around my office that inspire me, that are right in front of my face, because if you read that, you start to believe it. They said she couldn't, so she did. Like, I read that every day. And, I used to read that and not believe it and be like, okay, and here I am, like, I built this huge company, like I do national television, but I felt like a failure. Like, I felt like a failure in my money, a failure in my business, a failure in my personal life. And I wanted to hide. To be honest, that's where I was. And I'm like, I can't hide. I can't hide from my kids. they're watching me. I need to be strong for them, but I also needed to be strong for myself. And really, I started really focusing on meditation, on mindset, on self-care. Not so much self-care and I get my nails done, but get self-care. And I joined like a spa, and I go to this float tank spa thing once a month. And I spend 3 hours there, and I bring a book that's a manifestation book. And I focus on the positive things, and how, as women, especially, how little time we give ourselves to focus on ourselves. And, as just people in general, to just pause, to take an hour to go and do something, take a walk, go out for dinner with a friend. We're so in this rat race of life that we don't pause and do the things that are really important to us, or that used to be important to us,
Yeah. And it all makes such a difference. And I think it can feel almost too easy. It can feel almost too obvious, except this is the place we don't play in enough. And this is the place where the magic happens. So, to anyone listening, if you're thinking, oh, that's too easy, that's not going to change anything, try it. Try it for 30 days. Try to just even think about, how do I feel about money? Just what's going through my brain? What sort of voices am I telling myself about money? Just try to have some conscious awareness around it. And you would be really surprised, because it starts to change every aspect of yourself. I tell people that money touches everything.
Yep. I say the same exact thing.
Yeah.
It touches everything.
It's
and
really
it affects
hard
everything.
to find something that isn't somehow at the root related to money. So if money touches every aspect of our lives, right? Why wouldn't mindset work? Right? Because it's interconnected with everything. And so it's so powerful. I mean, it's so powerful that I created my first product, Money Mindset Journal, that was based on this system that I developed.
Love it.
After my divorce, and that I'd been teaching clients and friends for years. And then I thought, this thing needs to actually be a thing, because I know this works. And it's simple. It's, the money success, I think, is found in simplicity. If you ask millionaires and billionaires, they're going to tell you a list of, 5 or 10 things that they've done. And they're all pretty simplistic things. And you were talking about quotes. I mean, one of the biggest selling books ever is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I think that was created in the 20s or 30s. I mean, that's, we're going back some time now, almost 100 years. And this concept of what you think about your money has a direct impact on wealth, whatever that word means to you, how that's going to show up in your life. So, I think that if you're listening to this and you're new to this concept, just get out a white piece of paper, like we're talking. Just start at that very simplistic step, and just start visualizing, what do I want this thing to look like, and then how can I get my money to come along and make this thing happen, right? And when the two fuse together, that's when you have that peanut butter and jelly moment, right? Or peanut butter and chocolate, whatever your thing is.
I'm a peanut butter and chocolate girl myself.
Okay, me too. Some people don't like the combo. I don't understand it, but
those people are weird, in my opinion.
I think so.
No, but it's so true. That whole, I think, mindset shifting is so important. And if you have trouble doing it yourself, that's why I'm a huge proponent of therapy, obviously, or working with a money mindset coach or a financial therapist, or, and I try and do a lot of that work in my online community myself, is to get people to change their money mindset and do some money meditations together and that kind of a thing, because I think that is so needed. And we've been having this conversation for so long. These big financial professionals that have been out there for years of, these are the steps you need to take to get out of debt. And they're great. Those steps are great. And those steps are worth it. But I think we're missing the big piece here. We're missing the elephant in the room of people are not doing the thing a lot of times because there's so much, I hate to use the term baggage because that's got its own connotation, but there's so much more going on behind the scenes that we don't even know about, stuff that's stuck down in there that we don't even know. I was talking, I had Stephen Hughes on, who's a financial therapist, but he does money Reiki. And I thought that's so cool, like unsticking things in your body that you don't even know are there, and there's just been a lot of really cool people that have come on the show to give a different perspective. So I appreciate you coming on to like share your story and how you got through your divorce and that there's hope on the other side of that too. Cause I know for me, there's so much beauty on the other side, even though it's freaking hard. It's hard.
It's hard. Yeah. I had one of my mentors tell me the only way through it is through it.
Yep.
And there aren't any shortcuts. So if you're in the muck, if you're in the messy pit right now, just know that you will get through it. It may not feel like it right now, but you will. And there will be gems to discover on the other side. But, for all of us that have walked through something very hard, you have a community of people here willing to support you and to know, especially when it comes to money, that you're not alone and that you're not unique. And I mean that in the best way possible, that your mistakes are not original. And if we have more of these conversations, we can, I think, really move from stress to a place of peace, and feel like we're all interconnected.
I totally agree with that, and I love the saying of "there's always sunshine underneath the clouds" too, and eventually the clouds will, spread and you'll see the sun again. But sometimes you got to just sit in the rain and like wait for it to pass, because I'm not strong enough to move the clouds. I would like to sometimes, but oh man. Well,
if you figure out how, let me know.
I know, right? That would be nice, but patience and sitting and waiting. And I think that's been something that I've had to get really used to over the past few years, is just being okay with feeling uncomfortable and being okay with that and being like, I feel a little uncomfortable right now. And that's okay. It's okay. It'll pass. Been through it before. It'll pass, and developing those skills. It's a moment, just a moment. It'll pass, So, well, I appreciate you coming on the show. We're wrapping up on the hour, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to share. I know you have your mindset journal. Like, where can people find you and your resources and everything that you talked about?
Well, I host a podcast called Millennial Money, and you can find that on any podcast player. We have over 750 episodes. So if there is a topic you want to learn about money, we have it there. I also have the Money Mindset Journal, which is this cool 6-month journal to really walk you through some of the things that we've been talking about today. And you can find that at sayhelloitsme.com. And it's just it's a wonderful collection, a very easy 10 minutes a day to start tiptoeing into this mindset work.
I love that. I'm going to need to get me one of those. I love journaling. So I'll have to get one of those.
I think I know where you can find one.
Good. Well, thank you again so much for coming on the show and sharing all of your great advice and joining this conversation where we're having these hard money talks and, bringing this community together where we're kind of sick of talking about the numbers, and let's talk about the real stuff that's really going on behind the scenes. Numbers are great. They definitely get us to where we need to be. But if we don't deal with this mindset piece, that's the starting point, like what you said. All right. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Hard Money Talks podcast. I'm so excited that she was able to come on and share that. And so everything that we talked about on the show today, you can find at laurengrutman.com/podcast. And I'll have all the links to her website and her podcast herself, and also to her mindfulness journal, which I'm super excited about trying out. I'm definitely going to grab a copy of that. But I hope that this episode helped you really kind of rethink your money mindset. But also, if you're in a place where you're thinking about leaving a relationship, I hope that this helped you understand too, that there is hope on the other side of that, and that money shouldn't hold you back from happiness and from a life that brings you joy. I know going through, 2 divorces myself, which still hurts. To be honest, every time I say that, it still is very embarrassing for me, but every time I say it, it becomes a little less and less embarrassing. But as I go through that, I see that mindset is such a huge and important piece in healing from everything in life. So if I can stay honest and share my story, I don't want anybody to stay stuck in a bad financial situation, in a bad marriage, in an unhappy situation, just because of money, because you can always make more money, but you can't always get a second life. So keep that in mind. All right. I hope you have a wonderful day. Go and check out everything that I talked about on the episode today at laurengrutman.com/podcast. And also I have a great financial freedom academy that you can go to, laurengrutman.com/community, where we talk about this stuff. We talk about mindfulness. I give you mindful activities and meditations that you can work on. And we're going to talk about budgeting too and getting out of debt. We're going to talk about some of the number stuff, but only after we talk about the mindset stuff. So thank you for tuning in to this episode today, and I'll see you next week.